CSC contains a powerful and flexible audio engine. It can work with built-in Windows audio devices or any sound card supporting the lower latency ASIO driver model for high-end performance. For external mixing capability and sound localization, audio in CSC can be assigned to up to 64 independent output channels via internal buses defined as sound card stereo pairs. Buses can be added, removed, named and patched to a physical output pair in the audio setup window. The audio driver and interface can also be selected here. When using the Windows sound system, all available devices will be shown. Central to CSC's audio system are 64 playback engines, known as wave players. These are able to work with a variety of file types and formats, although for the most efficient performance, an uncompressed WAV file, usually with the extension WAV, matching the sample rate of the system is preferred. Players can be assigned unique names and assigned to overview visibility groups under the Player Setup tab, as well as specifying a default playback level and fade time. Under the Advanced Settings tab, system optimization can be configured, including the sample rate of CSC's internal mixer, the buffer size used for Windows Sound System, and the preferred buffer size of a selected ASIO device if it allows third-party control. Whilst there is some file adjustment options in CSC, an external audio editor application can be defined here to allow files to be opened directly from a player. Access to the players is via the Wave Player module, found in the Audio menu or already on the screen in a default new CSC session. All 64 players can be accessed via this module by selecting them in the Player spin box or clicking on the Wave Player file overview. Each player is unique and can, on a cue-by-cue basis, be programmed to play an audio file either straight through or in loop sections, change its volume level or output routing, pause, resume, or stop playback entirely. Any action defined in a player is saved to the current cue and repeated when the cue is recalled. A player can also be used directly without needing to recall a cue, making auditioning, level setting, and positioning seeking much quicker. 3 routing methods are provided to ensure maximum efficiency across a variety of applications, namely bus, mono, and multi. Bus ensures audio is delivered as quickly as possible with minimal resource usage to a stereo output pair. Mono will downmix a file to a single channel and route directly to the left or right side of a pair, whilst multi will allow a mixture of all available outputs via a routing mixer. When multi is selected, the routing mixer can be accessed by clicking the speaker icon. Custom routing groups can be saved and used throughout the show design process. Any change to a group will apply to every cue using that group. Sometimes it can be necessary to trim an audio file or play just part of the file. Opening the Wave Display window can show a graphical overview of the file, allowing the start and end points to be set, loop regions to be defined, or markers added to trigger an action when playback reaches a certain point in the file. To enhance workflow when working with multiple players and simultaneous audio files, additional overview modules are provided. The Wave Player File Overview window is able to show all 64 players at a glance, and during programming time will show what is saved to each player. Clicking on any player row will also select it in the Wave Player window, if open. When a player is active, this shows the progress of any file playing, as well as its fading status. This module can be configured to show all players, only certain players in visibility groups, or split to show dynamic players only when they are active to reduce screen space. The Wave Player Live Mixer substantially reduces the time needed to balance complex mixes of multiple audio files by showing all the levels in one place, even if they originate from different starting cues, as could be the case with large sequences. If the mixer is linked back to the main cue list, all changes are automatically stored in the originating cues, whether this is the initial play command for a file or a successive fade cue. Without the link enabled, different versions of a mix can be tried out, and if preferred, the Save button can be used to write the new levels back to the cue list. The Create button can be used to store a new cue with all the currently active cues stored as new fade cues on their respective players, whilst the Shift key can be used to move all active faders at once. Combined, a quick method of creating a cue to reduce overall level of a complex mix is performed instantly. Mixes can be fine-tuned with real-time mute and solo buttons with a standard add or replace solo mode in use. The mixer can be shown in wide or narrow mode depending on player usage and screen space. All mixer functions can be controlled via MIDI or OSC control messages to allow the use of an external surface for controlling levels. Whilst the mixer can be useful for balancing the level of complex sequences or layers of sounds, the timeline view can be used to visualize all playback within a cue, much like a digital audio workstation. Within this window, each player is shown in a manner similar to a track within a DAW, allowing to trim files, add fade in and out envelopes, as well as add a wait time from when the cue is fired by dragging files. Quick changes to volume and routing for each player can be accessed from the player panels, as well as further mute and solo buttons for fine-tuning a mix, mirroring those in the mixer. The timeline window includes its own file browser to quickly insert new audio files to players, or content can be dragged directly from Windows Explorer. By default, when a file is first assigned to an empty player, the default routing strategy is used, that is, routed to the first standard bus as defined in Audio Setup. For some show design, it is common to see many cues with similar content, such as musicals with click tracks. In these circumstances, it often becomes easier to assign a player a dedicated role, such as brass or backing vox. Not only can these players be named ahead of time in the Audio Setup window, but once the output bus structure is defined, a default routing strategy for each player can be defined in the Player Default Routing window. In this way, any new file added to a free player will take on the routing defined. Player routing can also be assigned based on keywords, which are found in the file name being added. Achieving optimal gain structure at the early stages of show design can be somewhat tricky when the content or show realization is not fully known from the start. CSC includes a set of player adjustment functions which allow for global level changes across specific buses, players, or multi-groups. These can be found in the Player Level Adjust window. A show can be searched for the current highest or lowest program levels and an offset applied to all players to ensure ideal gain structure without changing the relative levels between cues. When the time comes for gain matching with the rest of the sound system, a known reference level can be generated in the Tone Generator module. By automatically cycling through the available outputs, correct patching with the rest of the system can also be verified. Show design can happen quickly, and sometimes there is a requirement for a sound effect or rehearsal track on the spot. Working in this way can often go against any good working practice of ensuring audio files are in the correct format and sample rate, or even in the correct organisational folder. CSC's Media Manager contains powerful functions to help keep show source files under control. All media files within a show can be listed to show their current location, size and sample rate. Any files not matching the system sample rate can be quickly identified. Import settings can be defined to specify whether files should be converted to a common format when first added to a show, and an existing show media folder can be updated to ensure all files are in this location and of the correct format. An export of all files within a show can be performed, maybe for compiling a new show folder or converting existing media to a common format and sample rate. Media can also be exported into organised folders based on act, cue description, or custom naming schemes. A shortcut version of this functionality can be found under the File menu using the settings defined here.